most of us are waiting for a couple things. We're waiting for permission to be great, permission to be amazing, permission to go fast, go far, go bright, shine, be loud. I think we're also waiting for fearlessness, and that will never exist. So we have to reframe fear. We're also waiting for someone to believe in us and someone to say, like, hey, I know you can do this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Moeller Real Estate and Business Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Moeller, and on this podcast, we will be interviewing guests that have made their mark in real estate, in business, and in other areas of life. Listening to podcasts myself has helped me in so many different ways and continues to do so. If you're a real estate investor or an entrepreneur or aspiring to be either, or just someone that wants to learn, you've come to the right place. An easy way to have an impact is to share this episode with friends or family, provide a review, or just spread the word. We greatly appreciate it, and now let's get to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Moeller Real Estate and Business Podcast. Very excited for this week's guest, Mr. Aaron Velky. Aaron, how are you doing today?
I'm a 10 out of 10 today, brother. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, just to introduce Aaron for our listeners, Aaron's an entrepreneur, an author, thought leader, coach, founder of many different companies. One of them is a company called Get Out of Your Own Way. And, Aaron's helped me at either different events I've been to, or kind of with a small group, kind of talking through some different coaching concepts and other things that have been helpful for me to think through what I'm doing. How can I get better? Maybe what mindset shifts do I need to take? So before we get into some of that, because I think we'll dig in, and I'm a little worried you're going to dig in deep and expose me, Aaron, but joking aside, I'm excited about it. But why coaching? Why this path? Like what led you to this?
I started coaching when I was like 21 years old, maybe 22. Kind of that timeline is always a little bit blurry, but I was really young. I was just out of college and I started working with athletes to play my favorite game. I was a soccer player through and through. So I got to teach my favorite game, and it didn't take very long before coaching felt bigger than just soccer. And when you work with young athletes, I was working with girls. That's the premise of the book. The book is called Let Her Play. But that was after 12 years of coaching. But, when I got into it, you start coaching athletics because you love this sport, or because that was my whole life, soccer was. And very quickly, it became obvious that what these young female athletes needed was bigger than just technical skills and a coach that told them when to run, how to pass, how to move. So mindset, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was helping them build a strong mindset. I was helping them build confidence. I was helping them see their future differently. And by the time I was 5 or 6 years in, I mean, I was still like 26, 27. I'd quit my job to build my own company. So there was just this synergy of like, I'm going to help you live better, not just play soccer better, but I want you to be a better person. I want you to be a better athlete for sure. I want you to be a better thinker, a better learner. And everything in my world centralized around that theme. And the more I did it, the better I got, the more I loved it. And over the next decade and a half, I mean, it's been almost 15 years since I've been coaching. The problems have just gotten more complex. The game has gotten more complex. I don't coach soccer anymore. I coach in business.
Yep.
But we think bigger than business. And that, I think, is what has separated us from, your traditional business coach. And I've just fallen in love with solving problems, people problems, and helping unlock people. And now it's something I get to do every day. This was the dream. So I'm very proud of that. It also means that every day I have tough conversations and I have hard dialogues and I dig in real deep, and it is still the most meaningful thing I've ever done, day after day.
What did you, when you were coaching soccer, first of all, I would say mindset principles. Do you think at a young age you had those principles and you were teaching those you just found yourself teaching those in addition to the technical skills? And did you start to see results from that with the athletes as well? How did your mindset shift around realizing the importance of coaching shift?
Well, I had I had coaches when I was young, but my parents couldn't put me in elite programs and put me with elite guys. When I started coaching, I had walked through enough fire at that point in my life, and again, I was still really young to to know that I had some stuff figured out. Like I had basically walked onto a Division I program just based on hard work. So I understood some things, mostly about hard work and what it looked like to practice fine detailed mechanics and movements for repetition and to fall in love with the process. Like I got that part, but I had never done personal development. So I had no idea about mindset. I didn't know anything about what that looked like. And the pattern that I saw with young athletes, and I think this is true today, is that there's like a glory. This is true for entrepreneurship as well, actually. There's like a glory in the win that everyone thinks entrepreneurship is made up of, not the mundane. And with athletes and entrepreneurs, it's the boring day-to-day stuff that makes you successful. It's the repetitive, I'm going to practice 6 times more than somebody else. The Kobe Bryant effect of like, you guys are doing 2 days, I'm doing 3 days. It's only going to take me 3 years before you'll never catch me. That really changes the way an athlete thinks. So while I didn't know that I was coaching mindset, while I didn't know that I was coaching these practices, what I did know is that many of the athletes did not love the process. And I think that today, many entrepreneurs do not love their process. They genuinely don't love running their business. They don't love their lifestyle. They don't love why they do it, or that it has impact, or maybe it's missing that it's not fulfilling. And I think in that process, athletes were going through and learning how to build a sequence that would create success. That taught me a lot and opened up a lot because it was a feedback loop. And then the results came. Like I took teams that were typically discounted down and out and built them into like really, really, really strong teams. My job was to take a second tier team and get players to move up to be a developmental leader. And I love that. I don't think I would have loved it nearly as much to take a top tier team. I took the second level down. But to promote those players, to watch them grow, to take a team that was ranked, 75th in the state and get them to second in the state, what was a big deal. To win tournaments that they were not normally slated to even be qualified for and get titles was a big deal. But the magic of that result was not just watching them succeed. That was great. And I love that. And I love winning. And now I love winning. I love watching entrepreneurs win and find what they want. But it was also watching these young women become way different people, confident in themselves. Their grades changed. The way they communicated with their parents was different. The way they thought about college or professions was way different. So similarly, it was a very holistic approach. I knew that many of them would not play pro. That's just statistics. So I'm going to make them good people.
Yeah. How, so you talked about, first of all, I love sports and analogies, and there's a lot there. So I appreciate that. And I think it helps us wrap our minds around like what you're doing and what it means. Um, you said you unlock people. What does that mean?
I think of the way we think like a hallway with doors. The way you think, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you've been through, has a lot of different openings. If you see someone that's doing something you didn't know you could do, it's going to unlock a door. And all of a sudden you can go through and you can pursue. If you meet the right person, you get to walk through a door and your whole life can change. So I think we're constantly in this hallway of opportunities. Oftentimes, though, we're either afraid to open the door for the unknown that's behind it, or we feel like we don't have the keys. And in my profession and my vocation, I'm largely looking for the way that people think so that I can understand what doors matter most to them. We also have so many doors sometimes that we don't know where to go, and we end up paralyzed in that hallway of choice. So I suppose at the core, most of us are waiting for a couple things. We're waiting for permission to be great, permission to be amazing, permission to go fast, go far, go bright, shine, be loud. I think we're also waiting for fearlessness, and that will never exist. So we have to reframe fear. we're also waiting for someone to believe in us and someone to say like, hey, I know you can do this. My job is to do those three things and to do them simultaneously without you ever thinking that I'm doing them. It's like, you can go to the doctor and get a shot, and sometimes you feel it and bleed, and other times you're like, oh, we're already done. I prefer to be the latter. Like I'm here to help you through that hallway, to figure out the doors, to figure out the keys, but mostly in that experience of like, man, I got all these options, or I'm not sure what to do, or I don't know what I want. We also get to discover who you are. And I don't think many people spend enough time asking the question like, who am I?
Yeah. And you said that earlier. So you said you're you help people discover who they are, but also you're looking for the way people think. So I don't know how to, I'm worried you're going to ask me, like you're going to again dissect me, but how do we find out how we think?
I ask a lot of questions, and what I'm looking for when I'm in coach mode. So coaching mode can be different for a lot of, like, the word coaching can mean so many different things. If you're working with like a traditional business coach, what he's going to ask you about, or he or she might ask you about your P&L, your numbers, your operating procedures, your processes, your team, all that. That information is helpful to me, but I need to understand how a person thinks at such an immaculate level that I can map out a three-dimensional model of the way they articulate thoughts. So I'm asking all these questions about like what you think, how you think, why you think, and none of those are going to be. I'm never going to ask a person like, "What do you think?" I might ask them to share their thoughts or feedback, but I'm going to go around the corner to get that answer. The reason that knowing the way someone thinks is important, though, is until I understand the way that you think, I can't articulate a message that helps you unlock one of these doors in a way that you're going to resonate with. So I have to know the way you communicate. I have to know what you're afraid of. I have to know what you believe. I have to know the stories you tell yourself and the results that you're chasing. And once we can dig into that, and I can sort of map this three-dimensional model of a way a person thinks, then what I can do is I can almost complete the circle and say, hey, here's where you're asking me to help you. Now I know how to talk to you about it. And now I know how to approach you with solutions. For example, some people will be very direct and open about like, hey, I want your thoughts. I want your feedback. Some people will say, how I want to hear your story and how you navigated this. Some people don't care about my story. Some people want the answer. Some people want the path. But if I don't know what you want, it's very hard for me to serve you in the way that's important.
So there's a lot of different frameworks as well that you use that you kind of navigate through. So one we worked through was, I don't know if this is the best one, but like, you just imagine like four quadrants: distractions, priorities, playing small, playing big.
Yeah.
And like, talk me through maybe that framework, if that's the most relevant, and how that helps guide our decisions.
Yeah. Well, I love that framework. That framework is called Focus for anybody tuned in. And the idea is that, uh, well, I'll tell you the history. That exercise comes from thousands of conversations about focus, from guys that are, at the very beginning of their business all the way to guys that are earning seven figures a year. And when you go through conversations over and over and over, same thing with soccer, right? If I know you have to master this skill, I'm going to build a practice arena for you to build the skill. So focus as a skill is not concentration. It's more about, are all your arrows pointed the same direction? So that exercise, that framework is about, hey, let's look at our priorities. What are your values? That's a who are you kind of question. What do you care about? That's a really helpful mental framework for me to know as I paint the picture of how you think. Then we look at distractions. Okay, what's getting in the way of that? And distractions really need context. They need something to be from. So you can't be distracted unless you're distracted from something else. So our values and distractions paint a really clear picture of like what matters most to you and what's in the way. Then we look at something like playing small, playing big. And similarly, we can say playing small is your comfort zone. It's the thing that you're doing because you know you can do it. And playing big is going to be the thing that scares you the most, but that matters the most to you. And if I think about playing big for most of us, that's our future self. That's who we want to be. So if we have who we are and who we want to be, we can kind of start to map a trail. We can identify a pathway to that. But I think that most of us, and me included, I'm not in any way reserved from this. We get kind of hung up in like a safety mechanism. I just want to feel good. I want to feel great at what I do, and I want to do it really well. But the playing big in me and the priorities in me might feel really weird. It's actually very difficult for me, Phil, to like sit down and be still. And yet that's a priority of mine, thinking and processing and reflecting. I think it can feel like I'm not enough, like I haven't deserved downtime, or taking a vacation is a bad thing because of all this programming. So playing big might mean something as simple as taking a 2-week vacation for an entrepreneur that's worked for 5 years without one. But on the other side, I think there's plenty of room to say that this focus exercise is really about, can you tell me what you want? Can you really articulate where you want to go? Because most of us have not done the work to really articulate what we want.
So what are, like, if we talk about what we want, the words priorities and values, what are some common examples that, rise to the top for your coaching clients?
Well, the way that I think this tends to shape is we say, what do you want when you get there? Like, what would you want more of when you were mega successful? Let's say you sold your business tomorrow for $10 million. You got big bank draw coming in. Like, what do you do? Well, at that point, we get to go back to what everyone says they want, where they're like, I want to spend more time with the family. I want to get back to reading and learning again. I'd love to get back in better shape. I'd love to, volunteer and find a community that I can really be a part of so I can make a difference in someone else's life. And let's just take those four as an example. Those four things are not determined simply by the exit of a business. Those are things that we can weave into our process. Right. And if you keep postponing those for the like excuse that when my business is quote unquote successful enough, then I'll pursue them, you will probably miss it. So our work is really about, hey, let me understand what you want. If we propose this situation where you've got $10 million, or for somebody listening, like if the goal is, hey, I'm going to build all this real estate or buy all this real estate and build this empire and portfolio that will eventually get me out of my job. Well, that's just the beginning. That's not the end. That's the beginning. You then start. So how do we build a process that you'll love day after day after day? And I can tell you from my own experience and from others that entrepreneurs are great at building. What they are not always great at is being intentional about what they're building, because it feels like a scramble every day. It feels like a soccer match. You're just in it. Like, you can't control the ball. There's 12 other people on the field that are making it more challenging. So if we have a very complicated game and we know that family and health and travel and impact are important, we're going to build that into the way that you build your business and make it very intentional. Your business is going to be baked around these things versus those things being baked around your business. So it's an inverted way to look at it. But once you fall in love with the process where you're getting your values and you're building your business, you will play the game forever. This is the same thing I did with athletes. Fall in love with the process.
I love it. And so, first of all, I think the major message is, like, you reference, I want more time with the family, read, health, volunteer, impact, travel. The point is, don't wait for that big exit, or don't wait till the business is a certain size, or you think like this end state of success to do those things. No, build that in, do that now. It's like build the process now. The issue is there are a lot of typical distractions from this. So what are some of the most common distractions that you hear from people?
Good old entrepreneurship. Well, I'd say the top three are incredibly simple, but they're gnarly and they're tricky. So the first one is, we make ourselves out to be much more important than we are. So we keep a bunch of tasks on our plate. We continue to make ourselves like the best of the best. And we retain this sense of like decision making versus letting it go. So when we make ourselves really important, we're needed. We're significant. It appeals to a certain part of us. The second is that we see this opportunity to go invest in these things, family, reading, impact, and rather than start small, we think that we can just bypass the whole product and get to the mega result at the end. So it doesn't become a process. So we're like, I want to donate $1 million to, I don't know, Salvation Army. And rather than start with like a weekly draw of $5, where like I just have to wait until I have $1 million, which if you're doing anything right in business, you're probably not holding $1 million cash for very long. So
Right.
rather than thinking of it as an aggregate success that takes place over time, we're like trying to wait and wait and wait so we can have this mega win that I think is also fundamentally flawed. At the time you would get $1 million, it would be so distant from that intention that it probably would never happen in the first place.
Right. Because I mean, you hear this a lot, like it just, that's a perfect example, like donating or contributing to things. And if you don't start early on, when you get to the $1 million, you're okay, well, I'm going to get to 5 million or
You
whatever it
move the
is. Or,
goalposts.
hey, I can invest this and save it and do it later when I make more money because of this. So I'm not going to do this right now. Right. So,
Right.
but I'll do this in 3 years or 5 years from now. So you keep moving the
Yeah.
goalpost back.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think health is another great example of that, right? Like I'll take care of my health when I blank, blank, blank. And it gets harder and harder if you like maintaining your health candidly is not hard. Getting your health back, that's an uphill dogfight. So if we're more intentional early, we end up building the process that then makes it much more magnified when we're better.
yep. So I like not, so don't focus on the mega result was the second one.
Mm-hmm. Number three. Oh, number three. This is a really frustrating one as a coach, but it's a really fascinating one all the same. I think that we get distracted because we secretly love our distractions, and we haven't reconciled that we do. And it's okay. It's okay to love your distraction. I think that it's actually normal to want that. But in entrepreneurship, we play this messed up tennis match in our head, and that match is like, I want to build myself out of the business, and I don't want to work very hard. And then when we get a break, we're like, I really just want to be back in the office, and I don't feel like I should take time off. So we're never where our feet are. And this idea of like you're not present is often the biggest distraction. If you're in a meeting, be in the meeting. If you're at home with your kids, be with your kids. It doesn't matter that your world around you is not perfect. It just matters that where you are is a perfect moment. And I think that the distraction is often it's better somewhere else. It's a belief that it's better somewhere else, or that I'm not enough, or that I'm not capable of being loved unless I'm providing all this value, or I'm not worthy of a big dream. I'm not worthy of rest, of recovery. And this I'll be somewhere else, or it's better somewhere else, creates this tension that never allows us to actually enjoy what we work for. And I think every entrepreneur listening could probably attest to like that struggle.
Have you read the book Power of Now
I
by
have
Eckhart Tolle?
totally.
Just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about just being in the present moment. And I was just looking at, like, I was posting something like being in the present moment and how often we all live in our minds are constantly in either the past or the future. And we're never
Yes.
just where as you said, we're never where our feet are. So, we have our priorities and values. We have distractions. When we went through this exercise, there's playing small, which I think we can probably get our minds around, and maybe you have examples, but really playing big. I think I had a misinterpretation of like what playing big needs to be, or like what that means. So for example, in real estate, a really simple playing big could be, hey, I want to go buy this like I bought a single family and a duplex. I'm going to go buy 100-unit property. And
Mm.
I guess that might be playing stupid, not playing big. I don't know. You tell me, like, how should we reframe, or what should we be thinking about when we're trying to understand what playing big looks like, or what is there, and is there any misinterpretation of that?
I appreciate the alley oop, man. You know, I think that playing big for most of our conditioning just leads to how do I get more of what I already have? And the problem there is that playing big by definition should be the next level, should be completely different. And when we pursue something like the next level, here's the human flaw in this. We tend to say, well, here's what it looks like, knowing full well that we have never been there. We've never done that. And the idea of really sitting on a playing big dream is that you don't know what it looks like. You don't know what it feels like yet. And that's okay. That's what creates the fear. That's what creates the unknown and the excitement and the enthusiasm for it. It's so different. Like I can remember making 40 grand a year. I remember what that was like. at that time, there's no way I could imagine where I'm at today. There's no way. I didn't know the rules. I didn't know the game. I didn't know the choices that I would have to make. I could just imagine where it was. As we get bigger and bigger, though, the playing big usually shrinks because it would force us back into discomfort. So I think the way we like to look at playing big is to say, yeah, 100-unit property, that's great. Like, go for it. That might be playing big only in your career. But what's playing big outside of that? Because if you're just playing big in your career, but everything else is small, you're going to start to feel the pressure of that. In fact, I'd say every client that we work with has started to feel the pressure of like, okay, I have all the things in my career box checked off and we keep doing big things, but like the rest of my life feels like it's necrotic. It's toxic. Something's not working. So playing big is going to be what happens when you get this 100-unit thing and let's say you get the cash flow that you want, make 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, pick a number a month without working. Where does your time go? Because without some kind of direction, some kind of intention, your time is going to be wasted. The time is not a vacuum. Like it can't just exist without use. And when people say to me, hey, I want to be financially free, I'm like, look, I'm not going to give you the chance to tell me that that's your goal. Because that's not a goal. That's like an option.
Yep.
Hey, I want to be free. Free from what? Free to do what? And once we start digging into that, almost every single person has this. It's the thing you wanted to be when you were a kid. It's the dream you had before you set out to buy a 100-unit property when you didn't even know about that. It's I want to write a book. I want to start a podcast. I want to learn to dance. I want to go make a dent. I want to speak to my middle school. I want to start a scholarship fund. I want to travel to all 7 continents. I want to go learn what it's like to be a polar bear. Like, name it. It doesn't matter what it is to you. What matters is that you are aware of it.
Yep.
And I think,
go ahead. Sorry. No, finish that thought, please.
Playing big is often off radar for almost every single person I've coached because there is shame in playing big. And this is a cultural thing that I think is hard to wrap your mind around. But when you're really pursuing greatness, it's outcasting. And when you say something big like, hey, I want to go and I want to write 3 novels. I'm going to like take over George Lucas and Star Wars, like whatever it is, you then have to recognize that everything you knew about yourself is about to go out the window and you have to start over.
Yeah. I want to talk about I'll come back to this freedom of purpose. Before I do, you really hit on the playing big in your career versus out of your career. And I think so many people that are listening, and myself included, when we think playing big, we think career, we think entrepreneurship. And so many entrepreneurs think playing big means more stress, more time away from family. Does the conflict between career and I'll just bucket the other things in personal have to be there, or how do we make them support each other versus be against each other?
The conflict is there because we've built a nervous system around stress. So when our stress levels drop, we think that that's abnormal, right? If my baseline stress is level 5 and I go to a level 1, I'm going to think something's not right. We have to reprogram that. One of the biggest reprogrammings I have had to do is not to feel peaceful in chaos, but to feel peaceful in peace. Because if there was chaos, I'm like, dude, this is great. This is just my life. Like, here I am. I thrive in chaos. Anybody that's ever been an entrepreneur could probably say that. Hey, I thrive in chaos. But then I'd find that I got the business to a great place. I got my life to a great place and it felt peaceful. And the first thing I would do is nuclear bomb this thing so that it was back to chaos where I felt at home and I felt safe. So we build this tension between our career and our personal lives to bundle all those things in with you. And when there's change in that, we want to find whatever static is. And again, most entrepreneurs live at like a level 5, a level 6. And if it goes to 10, they're like, I got to change it. But if it goes to 7, it's okay. If it goes to 5, it's okay. But it's these dramatic changes. What we work really intentionally to do is to help someone understand what's going on here in between their ears and figure out what they want, because most people aspire to get to a stress level of 2. But when they get there, they're like alert beacons go off and they're like, I don't know how to live like this. I feel too comfortable. And in personal development, one of the biggest problems I have with personal development in general is that we've made hustle culture into hustle porn, where Like we're trying to hustle so that we don't have to hustle the same way. Like we didn't build a business so that we could work 40 hours. The point was when we started, like, yeah, I want a lifestyle where I don't have to do this. And yet, given the option, we often default back to, well, I got to work 60, I got to work 50, I got to work 40. Ideally, when we repattern some of these behaviors, when we rewire the way that people think, if I have a model of what people are doing, I can start to connect different nodes together. Once we do that, then what we start to see is entrepreneurs that build slow, that build intentional into their lifestyle, where the personal and professional stress is not nearly as high, where they're comfortable being comfortable. Not saying don't pursue more, they're still pursuing more, but what they recognize is that playing big is often one or two deals a year, or maybe 10 deals a year, not 50, not 100. And scale looks different than we talk about. The way that we talk about scale in most places is more. The way I think about scale is less. Less clients, bigger, deeper work.
And just so many different thoughts, but playing big isn't scaling is scaling. Playing big is different than scaling. Playing big is a
Yeah.
personal thing for you that you have to do work to understand what playing big means. I will come back to that. But before we do, you talked about like just, entrepreneurs and doing more and not being comfortable, or, if entrepreneurs are quote at peace, then they're not at peace basically because they're like, oh, I got to find the stress back. So how do we balance the peaceful state, if you will, versus ambition? Okay, to whom much is given, much is required. Like I need to go do more, have an impact, and that's going to create this chaos possibly. Versus like how do I balance, if those are the right words, peace versus ambition?
Great question. The way I'll distinguish it is the difference between running from something and running to something. When we're like, oh my God, I got to get back to like stress and stress and stress, and I need to be tested, I need to be in chaos. We're basically running from something. We're trying to find a way out from our circumstance. And I think that struggle is inevitable. Like there is struggle in every single human being's personal experience. But there's a very big difference between the person that's running from something that says, I'm going to go find more struggle because I don't have enough stress right now. I need to go add more stress. Usually this is subconscious. It's not happening on the surface. Versus the person that's like, you know what? I can't wait to go make a difference. And if struggle comes, I'll weather it because I know where I'm going. The the orientation is the difference. Walking towards struggle is different than walking through struggle. And I find that most entrepreneurs have worked so hard to build a really successful life on paper. It's really good. And it's really good in a lot of ways. They're successful, their business, earns 7 or 8 figures, they're growing, they've got a team, they've built a family, they've got processes, they've got all these things. And when I ask them, like, what are you marching towards? The only common denominator that I can find is more. I'm just marching towards more. And then the question has to be asked, what are you marching towards more of? And until we get really clear on what it is that we want, like the impact that we want to make, the fulfillment that we want to seek, the clarity that we have in our heart and mind, it's very frustrating to watch someone regularly put themselves back into struggle mode. I think that the more evolved version of that is, hey, I will endure the struggle. I will happily make my life complex again. I will happily go through that because yes, to whom much is given, much is tested. And also, that doesn't mean we go hunting for it because then we're not enjoying the peace that we work so hard to build.
Yeah. You talked earlier about, different freedoms, I think you said, but the last one you said was freedom of purpose, which like when I think about like priorities for our lives, I think, okay, like, can we get financial freedom? We've all heard that, or time freedom. I think about freedom of like fear of what other people think. But
Hmm.
I think a lot of those things, like those items there, are the limiting factors to, I think the ultimate is like freedom of purpose, and like how do we think about what that is? Is the exercise we did the right one, or how do we think about that more? Like, what is that more? Like, first of all, do you agree with that? Or how do you think about the freedoms? And then also, how do we find the right purpose that we want to pursue?
I love that question. The hardest freedom for me to get out from was freedom from other people's opinions. There was definitely just a lot in that journey. The underlying all that, I agree with these various different freedoms, and what I've watched and experienced is that the idea of purpose is incredibly intimidating. It's very vague, it's very big, it's very unknown. And I think we can take the mantle off of that and make it less like you got to save the planet or you have to like change the world, and instead say like, how about freedom of intention? Because it drops it down to ground level. Purpose feels very big. Intention feels like, oh, this could be like a month, or it could be like a year, or it could be 3 years, whatever that is. So that to me has been very helpful. And I think that has been mirrored sentimentally by clients who are like, oh, that doesn't feel so ethereal. But this idea of intention makes it very practical to start to think about how you can make your life more intentional, not just your business, but everything. So if someone says like, hey, Aaron, in my history, man, I was bullied all the time. I was like the kid that was just not good in school, and I didn't fit in anywhere, and I really, it's crazy that I became successful. And it'd be really cool to go help kids that also don't feel like school is for them. Okay, well now we have a bit of an intention. Could I go reach kids that might not like school and see if I can offer them a message that you can be successful, that there is hope for you? With that intention, we start to carve out actions, direction. We start to carve out resources and just begin to build that process in. So that if this person that we've somehow identified says, I want to go help kids that don't like school, we can then say, all right, well, let's figure out a method to do that. And let's weave it into your day to day. Because now, if your fulfillment is present, if you're happier and you're more impacted and you're putting energy into this, you're going to feel better, which is going to make you better in business, more attractive to clients. Like everything grows. So with that, we might set up a monthly go speak to a school. Maybe that turns into a book deal. Like who knows how far it can go, but it could simply be, I want to talk to 15 different schools in my state over the next year.
I love that. So we're taking, if we've thought about the bigger things, we're changing that from, if people say the scary word of purpose, we're changing that to know what's your intention. It probably aligns. If you've thought about that, they're aligned, but your intention is a much, less scary way to say, okay, if this is my general intention of what I want to do, what are a couple of small next steps I can take? Now, I want to ask that. So, okay, intention, that now I'm confused, Aaron. Intention versus purpose, small versus big, like playing small, playing big. So help me think through taking a step towards intention as
Mm-hmm.
playing big.
So the idea of reaching middle school kids comes from our playing big reflection, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to take that and then we want to make it small steps. We want to make it, I'll use a different phrase. We want to look at beginning. We want to look at the beginner steps to get down that pathway. So we might say something like, I want to build a scholarship fund. That might be my playing big. I want to build a scholarship fund. And that might seem really far away. That might seem like purpose. I got to send 1,000 people to college. Well, let's start with one. Let's begin. Let's begin in a very small way. So the way I like to distinguish this is that an intention helps us chart course. It helps us begin the journey. The playing big is still the North Star. And we can get kind of mixed up in like, well, that's a really big thing. Where do I start? If I want to write a book, like where do I start? I don't even know where to start. Okay, then how about for the next month? If the intention is to write a book and publish a book, how about just write 100 words a day? They don't even have to be connected thoughts.
Right.
Can I just begin?
Yep.
And I almost laugh about it because the more successful you get, the more unlikely you are to be a beginner at anything, because we're taught stay in your lane. You're the expert. You're the expert at this. Don't start something new. You're going to go back to the bottom. And that's sort of the cosmic irony that is also required if you're ever going to play big. You will have to be a beginner at something.
Yeah. I like that a lot because I've thought about, so, we're doing the podcast, some different book concepts. You've written a book, you've launched it, you've been successful with it. So congratulations. And a buddy of mine, we just said, hey, for 4 days a week, we're going to just take 1% of our waking hours, 10 minutes a day, and we're going to start to write.
Love
And
that.
instead of me thinking this big lofty thing, it's like, no, I'm just going to start to write. And it's pretty jumbled right now. Like there's some framework, it's kind of coming together, but look, I'm putting things on paper. I'm making progress. Like I'm moving towards my intention, right? So I appreciate that. You talked a lot early on about you said the word mindset a couple of different times. And I want to make sure our listeners are like, what does that word mean?
Hmm. Well, the I'll use the word belief. So to me, a mindset is a collection of beliefs. And I think belief can be a very difficult thing to define. So I'll give you my definition of belief, and our definition here at Get Out of Your Own Way is a belief is your choice of truth. If that's the definition, the most powerful part of that definition is the word choice. A mindset is a collection of those things. So I might believe that anyone over 6'2" is meant to play basketball. Well, that's a choice of the truth that I choose to live in. I might believe that if I read enough books, that I become more educated, or that if I invest enough money, I become wealthy. It's really fascinating when we start to uncoil a belief. We need to know where it came from. A lot of it comes from just absorbing as a kid, but a mindset is sort of the bookshelf of all those different beliefs. And my job, in many ways, is to assess someone's bookshelf and say, like, hey, you do recognize that if this book is on the shelf, it doesn't really help you get where you want to go. And it might be a good time to edit and maybe do some spring cleaning and take some of these books off the shelf and replace them with more fitting ones, just like you would a computer. If you want your computer to run faster, take out the RAM, put in new RAM. Well, part of that is removal. And so I think a mindset is we all have one. We're mostly not aware of what is on the bookshelf. And in the deep work of coaching, at least the deep work that we do, that change and transformation happens when we really start to look on the shelf and say, hey, are you going to get where you want to go if you believe this? And most of the time, the answer is no.
And so I was going to ask the question, you kind of alluded to it, but the first step, if we want to change our mindset, which I think we all have a mindset, we all have a set of beliefs of right, our choices of truth, like whatever has led to that, we all have, like today we have that. That's our mindset is in place. In my opinion, every single person on the planet can grow in their mindset and improve their mindset from where it is today. So you reference awareness. How do we change it? What does that look like?
Information can kind of kick some of that off where we recognize, oh, there's another way. I'm a big believer in a better way. In fact, if there's three things that we stand for, it's basically there's a better way to live, there's a better way to run your business, there's a better way to lead a team. Clarity is going to be an important vehicle in that. So we're going to help you build absolute pristine clarity. And then, hey, at the end of this, we all want impact and we're going to help you build that in. So those are principles for us. But I think that asking for help is a really good way. If you are lacking awareness or you struggle with awareness or you don't think that you're the problem, right? This is based on the brand name, Get Out of Your Own Way. Like you're the problem, man.
Yep.
If you don't think you're the problem, then asking for help is probably going to be the way. You might have to get some kind of coaching. You might have to get someone to lend you their awareness in a way that's essentially what I lend. Hey, I can see something that you can't see. I'm going to lend it to you. So you can borrow my courage. You can borrow my awareness. You can borrow these things. But in many ways, mindset happens when we're willing to confront what we believe. Shift happens then. Until you are willing to have a real hard look in the mirror and be like, you know what? This is how I've been. This is how I've been acting and operating. This is how I've been thinking. And I'm prepared to assess that, own it, and change it. Nothing will change. And if that's about money, it's about money. It could be about relationships or health or fitness, all of those things.
Man, there's a lot there. I love if you want to change your mindset, be open-minded to changing your mindset and confront your beliefs. You said you're the problem, like get out of your own way. If you have a problem, maybe there can be some incredible, out of our control experiences. But in general, if you have a problem, you are the problem, which also means you are the solution. Take ownership.
Brilliant.
You have the control to fix it, right? Which is just, extreme ownership. I love that. Aaron, I want to shift gears a little bit to kind of the final segment here. And, first question is, if you just step back, reflect, you've been coaching for a long time now, different, started with soccer, but into business coaching. How does what you do, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel of service. It makes me feel loving. It makes me feel alive. And it makes me feel like I am ultimately serving my intention.
Awesome. Awesome. Love that. Loving and alive. Honestly, feeling alive. Like that's the first time I've heard that. I love that answer. I love that answer. What has been your key factor to success?
Man, doing the same thing over and over and over and over. It's the same way that it happened in soccer, the same way athletics happens. I have probably coached, like, legit, even in just a business case. I've probably coached more entrepreneurs and more sessions and more hours unpaid than paid. And that probably exists today. Like I legitimately try to keep like 25-75 all the way up to 50-50 with like doing this work unpaid, making time to talk to people that are going through stuff. And I think that that's just about repetitions. I have way more repetitions than many people do in this space. And I'm lucky to say that at my age, at 36. But that has been the secret, that there is no secret. It's just solid numbers of reps.
You can see it. And you've been very generous, not just coming on the podcast. I appreciate it, but with just in different sessions that I've been a part of, you've been helpful, and you've been of service, and just in a very like loving way, like just serving others. It's been fantastic to see, and it's helped me a lot. So I appreciate it. What has been the most impactful business or personal development book that you've read?
Yeah, that's a tall order right there. Business or personal development book. Well, the one that has spoken to me lately in this season has been a book called Insanely Simple. It's come up with various different clients. It's a story about Apple from the lens of an outside party, watching Steve Jobs, who, in many ways was rather prickly while he was running this company, but the principles that he ran on were really, really good. And I think if an entrepreneur, if a executive, if somebody listening is like, hey, my world is rather complex, I want to make it more simple, that book is a great blueprint for some new mindsets around simplicity, meetings, money, marketing, process, behavior, all that.
Awesome, man. So helpful. Just a lot of just different takeaways here. So first of all, your coaching journey was helpful. And honestly, I would say that, if someone's coaching you sports, if someone's teaching, like there's so many different ways to be a coach that can, like, what is your intention with that coaching? Is it to teach technical skills in whatever you're coaching, or is it to have an impact in a different way? And then who knows what it could lead to, right? So appreciate just that thought process, the framework that we talked through, mindset, intention, just so much wisdom throughout the episode. So I really appreciate it. Aaron, how can people find out more about you?
Best place would be Instagram. Just go to Aaron Velky on Instagram, AARON, V as in victory, ELKY on Instagram. Got a YouTube channel. Facebook is another great place. Or they can just go to aaronvelky.com and find out everything I'm up to.
So much appreciation, Aaron. Thank you so much. Definitely check out Aaron's, whatever you're on, if you're on Instagram, YouTube, wherever it is, find Aaron, check it out. Subscribe to his content. It's great. I get it on a regular basis, and I definitely appreciate it. So Aaron, thank you so much for coming on for the Muller Real Estate and Business Podcast. Signing off. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Muller Real Estate and Business Podcast. We hope you found today's episode helpful. If you know current or aspiring investors or entrepreneurs or anyone that would benefit from today's episode, we appreciate you sharing it with them, or better yet, providing us a 5-star review. To learn more about Muller Real Estate, visit our website at www.mullerre.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter or local events via our website. In closing, I encourage you to be purposeful in all areas of life, educate yourself, network with others that have been successful, take action, and lead. Thank you.